The clock struck midnight, and the hospital halls had never felt so quiet. I had worked night shifts in the ICU for a year, and though there were always strange noises at night, the hum of machines, the distant murmur of a nurse, or the occasional patient stirring to night was different. It was as if the entire building was holding its breath. I had just finished checking the vitals in room 307 when I noticed something odd. Room 304's door was slightly ajar. The room had been empty since that morning, after the patient had been transferred to a different floor. The bed was stripped, the monitors turned off. My footsteps echoed softly as I approached, a strange chill creeping up my spine. I pushed the door open, and for a moment I felt the floor drop out from under me. There, sitting on the bed, was a woman. Her back was to me, and she was staring out the window. The moonlight cast an eerie glow around her, making her hair shimmer like silver threads. My breath caught in my throat as I stepped closer. "Ma'am," I said, my voice shaky, "this room is empty. Can I help you?" The woman didn't move. Her shoulders were slumped, and her hands were gripping the sheets tightly. Something about her posture sent a wave of unease through me. "Ma'am," I called out again, this time louder, hoping for some response. Still, she remained silent, staring into the darkness outside. I quickly left the room, my hands trembling as I dialed the front desk. "Can someone check room 304? There's a patient in there, but it's supposed to be empty." When they arrived, the woman was gone. The bed was perfectly made, untouched. I tried explaining what I saw, but they gave me a puzzled look, dismissing it as a trick of the night. But the next night, the same thing happened. Around the same time, I saw her again, sitting on the bed, staring out the window. This time I didn't try to talk to her, I just stood there, frozen in place, watching. After that, I learned the truth. The patient who had been in that room before had passed away unexpectedly in her sleep just a few nights ago. She had been alone when it happened, her last hours spent looking out that same window. Since then, the room had been sealed off, but no one knew why her spirit lingered. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that room 304 was watching me. Every time I passed by, I felt a chill crawl down my spine, as if invisible eyes were following my every move. One night, as I made my rounds, I found the door slightly open again. Against my better judgment, I pushed it wider, the familiar cold air washing over me. This time the woman was standing by the window, her back still turned to me. She didn't move, didn't even acknowledge my presence. But what terrified me most was the reflection in the glass, her face, twisted in agony, eyes wide with fear, and her mouth silently screaming. I stumbled back, slamming the door shut, my heart pounding in my chest. I refused to work near that room after that. Eventually they closed it off for good, but I couldn't forget the sight of her reflection in the window, forever trapped in her last moment of despair. The emergency room was always chaotic, especially during the night shift. I had gotten used to the noise, the beeping monitors, the clatter of carts, and the hurried footsteps of doctors and nurses. But one night, amidst the usual chaos, something strange happened, something I still can't explain. It started just after midnight. The phone at the nurse's station rang, and I picked it up automatically, expecting a call from one of the doctors. How can I help you?" There was no answer, just silence on the other end. I checked the caller ID room 6. Room 6 was at the far end of a private room where patients were sometimes placed for observation. But at that moment, the room was empty. The patient who had been in there earlier had been discharged hours ago. I hung up thinking it was a glitch, but a few minutes later the phone rang again. It was room 6. Again, silence, my pulse quickened, a sense of unease settling in. I got up from my seat and walked down the hall, my footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. The door to room 6 was closed, just as I had left it. I hesitated for a moment before pushing it open. The room was dark, the bed neatly made. Nothing seemed out of place. I let out a shaky breath, convincing myself it was just a technical error. As I turned to leave, I heard a faint breathing sound. It was soft at first, like someone was quietly gasping for air. I whipped around, but the room was still empty. My heart pounded in my chest as the breathing grew louder, more labored, as if someone was struggling to breathe right in front of me. I stumbled out of the room, my hands trembling as I pulled the door shut. I hurried back to the nurse's station, trying to calm my racing heart. But before I could sit down, the phone rang again. This time I didn't answer. The ringing echoed through the empty hallways, relentless. It didn't stop until I finally unplugged the phone from the wall. Just when I thought the strange calls had ended, I began to notice something even more unsettling. Every time I walked by room 6, I heard faint coughing, like someone was struggling to catch their breath. It was soft, barely noticeable, but it always sent a chill down my spine. One night I swear I saw the door slightly ajar and a shadow moving inside the